Välkommen till Whiskytower TV igen. Idag har vi glädjen att ta med oss Markvardsen, Senior Brand Ambassador of Highland Park. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah.
Great tasting today. I really
Hope you
liked
like it. Hope you like it. Some good whiskies. I think a good range of flavors.
Yeah.
It seems like the 58 people or whatever it was loved a good variety of whiskies here. So yeah, it's good. Very happy.
It was one of the best tastings I've been at. You did a terrific job.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You really did.
Thank you. I'm happy.
And you said there was a voting right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us about that one?
Well, it's a whiskey magazine that every year do something called Icons of Whiskey.
Yes.
And this year I'm nominated as Best Ambassador,
Yeah.
so
Nice.
Scottish Ambassador. So I'm very honored to be that. And the other guys in the same category is fantastic colleagues and good friends of mine as well. So
Yeah.
so it's an honor to be in the same company as them in this challenge show. So just simply honored about it. And if I win, I'm of course very happy. But just to be in the same company as these guys is an honor.
Yeah. I know which one I'm gonna vote for.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't tell, because I might be unhappy. So,
No problem. How many years do you have been in the industry, in the whiskey industry?
I've been working with whiskey more or less for 27 years.
Okay.
Everything been through every part of production.
Yeah.
But also when I wanted to work in whiskey, I said I need to try everything. So I've also been selling whiskey. I've been buying in whiskey.
Okay.
I've been working as a whiskey manager at Craigellachie Hotel in Scotland as well.
I read that.
And then now for the last 12 years working for Edmonton in Highland Park,
Yeah.
which is my dream job. I think they contacted me in 2006 when I was working at Craigellachie Hotel, and I remember when I got the call, we didn't talk about salary, anything. It's just my first question was, can I work with Highland Park 18?
Yes.
And they said yes, and I said, well, I'll take the job. I have no idea if I had to do it for free or whatever, but I probably felt like a young guy getting a phone call from FC Barcelona and saying, come and play for us. That was probably the same feeling I had. I was really, it was my dream job, and still to this very day I love each and every day of it. So yeah.
But the Highland Park is the main focus for you.
Yeah, I used to do Macallan as well, but for the last year and a half it's been 100% Highland Park.
Okay.
We have my colleague Sitsu O'Frinker have taken over Macallan, more or less worldwide, and now I'm doing Highland Park globally.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work, but it's when you have a passion for what you're doing and you really love it and you believe in it, it doesn't feel hard.
No.
It doesn't really feel like work for me. It still feels like I'm just doing my hobby and go out and meet a lot of fantastic people, talk about whiskey, good whiskey, and eventually I actually get to drink it as well, which is not it's not the worst part of the job. So
No.
yeah.
You get paid to drink whiskey.
Yes, actually, and you know, my son, when he was younger, his mom works in a bank, and he was asking in school, so what do you parents do? And he said, my mom sells money and my dad drinks whiskey.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a
Perfect combination.
that was a good combination. Yeah.
I was thinking about one thing. I'm a friend of you on Facebook,
Yeah.
and I see you there a lot.
Yeah.
And every time you go to Orkney, you say you're going home.
Yeah.
Is that the way you feel?
Yeah.
Is it like a home for you, Orkney?
Orkney is more home for me than anywhere else in the world. So even though I was born in Denmark and lived in Copenhagen, Orkney is where I feel home. This is where my heart is. This is where my friends is, and this is where I feel I belong. So it's a place where I relax while I'm working.
Yes.
It's a place where everything is as I always wanted it to be.
Yeah.
The people up there are extremely friendly and.
You feel like you're a part of them.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Orcadians is not a closed society. They're welcoming people with open arms.
Okay.
But they will probably not see you as an Orcadian unless you have the same values as they have. And I do think that most of the people that lives in Orkney see me as an Orcadian as well, because I do live after the same values. I do have the kind of Viking soul as they have, and as one of my colleagues at Highland Park said, I'm a true Orcadian because I know the way they live, and I have the same humor. I do the same things as they do, and I've done that from day one. And when I came to Orkney the first time, I fell in love with Orkney. I fell in love with Isla as well when I came there, but it was not a place I could imagine to live, because it's not really where I feel home. But from day one when I came to Orkney, I always had a feeling that this is the way I want to live, and this is the place I want to stay, and grow old, grow up. So
when you are there on Orkney, do you have a home there? Do you have a place that you call home?
Yeah, well, basically,
apartment or house?
Yeah, now I got a house up there.
Okay.
One of the distillery houses, which is now free and for me to use as well. But otherwise, I was staying at Orkney Hotel, and
Okay.
Orkney Hotel have treated me for many years as if it was my house. So that was my home away from home, and didn't feel for me like a hotel. It felt for me like home, and you know. When I came in, it was not to check in at a hotel like any other hotel. It was just, "Hi Martin, your room is ready," and just went up. And you know, the owner of the hotel, Aaron and Mary, treat me like family, and it's an amazing place. So, and that's typical Orcadian as well. That you, if they really accept you, which they do with most people. They'll take you in as family, and it's not really on a friendly basis, and you feel like you're only friends. No, you actually feel like family, and that's amazing. So.
It's obviously that you have a big passion for Orkney.
It's
no doubt about it.
No. I love Orkney, and mostly I love the people there. But if you've been to Orkney, you realize that. It's a fantastic island. You know, the islands you go around, and you go to Cliff of Gjesneby, you go to Stromness, you go around Kirkwall. It is fantastic surroundings there,
and
so
all these small islands around there.
Yeah.
When you go, we go by boat.
Yeah.
And these islands, and you have the sheeps on them.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Like magical.
It was magical.
Yeah, no, but there's something unique about it. First of all, you know, you'll find that type of islands a lot of places. You go to Ireland, you go to Shetland, whatever. But there's something historical. There's something magic about them when you come there, and it's
something
almost,
in there.
Yeah, and it's almost, you know, when you come to Shippensea or wherever Isklesea or wherever you go, it's like turning back the clock and be part of history.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about Orkney. When I go to a place called Brockabursey, where there's an old Viking village, I really imagine, you know, how the Vikings lived there and how the weather was, and so on. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about Orkney. That everything historical is so much alive. So.
I see you have a lot of tools. I mean, I know you have one special tattoo. And can you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, I have the Highland Park amulet on my chest. Got that made some years back.
On the hard side.
Yes. So, and I made that for two reasons. First of all, I always thought our amulet was beautiful, but also I wanted to, for myself, have something that was very, very close to my heart. And it's not only Highland Park I have here, it's also Orkney.
Yeah,
and of course,
understand that.
I have Orkney's motto as well.
But in 5 years, when you're working for Springbank,
yeah.
what do you do then?
Well, then I'll hang myself because to be honest with you, if the day comes where I won't work for Highland Park, I'll probably find another industry to work for. Highland Park is so much a part of me that if I can't work with Highland Park in this industry, I'll probably find another industry to work for. Could be beer, could be whatever, but credibility-wise as well, you know, I love Highland Park so much that it'll be very hard for me to go out and talk with the same passion for other brands.
Or you start a third distillery in Orkney, maybe.
Yeah, well, that could be a choice called Land Highland.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Park Highland or something. But I don't know. For me, it's about doing something I'm proud of, and I'm very, very proud to work for Highland Park. I drink a lot of other whiskey brands like Springbank, like Belveni and so on as well, and I really love these whiskies. There are so many good whiskies from other distilleries as well, but I would probably never have the same passion. There are a few distilleries where I really love them.
You've been at a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, I visit. Now I have to say most of the distilleries because at one point I visited all of them. But there are so many new distilleries in Scotland that there's a few of the new distilleries I haven't been to. But I love Scotch whiskey in general. But there's something for me about Highland Park that is just more than the others. So.
But can I ask you about your past?
Yeah, of course.
Before the whiskey industry, what did you do then?
Well, I used to work in the Danish military police, the Navy, and I'm educated as a painter. And then after my education there, I went to the Navy and became part of the military police, where I was for approximately 10 years.
Okay.
And I was doing the period there. I fell in love with Scotland. I fell in love with whiskey as well. After that, I had a lot of different kind of works, because at that time it was not easy to live full time doing whiskey tastings.
I can imagine.
If you go back just 15 years, whiskey was there, but it was not booming like today. So it was a different time. But I did tastings, and slowly, of course, it became better and better. At one point, I moved to. I worked at the airport in Copenhagen at Whiskey World there as a chief buyer. I worked at different whiskey shops in Copenhagen as well, and then I moved to Scotland again to work at Craigellachie Hotel as a whiskey manager. And at Craigellachie Hotel, of course, I got in touch with most of the Scottish distillery, because Craigellachie Hotel was kind of a showroom for them. So if you came there, if we didn't have everything that the distillery had been producing during the last 10-15 years, we were out of shape. We needed to have more or less everything they produced, and also some older bottles. So when I left Craigellachie Hotel in 2006 to start this, we had about 784 different single malts, and that was kind of what was on the market at that time from Scotland. Today you will see probably three or four times the amount, but that was what was available at that time, and we had it all. But it was also there I learned about the industry from a different kind of point. You know, I've been working at different distilleries. I've been working with Jim McEwen at Brugladig and Bowmore and so on. But it was the there.
Legend.
The legend. Well, it's no big secret. Jim McEwen has always been my mentor. The last couple of years, I would say that.
Did they call you the son?
No, not Jem, not Jem. But the last couple of years, our brand director Jason Craig has been mentoring me.
Okay.
His view on the industry is amazing. His ideas, his way to work is fantastic. So I've had different mentors during my time, but to work today with a mentor is fantastic. So even though he's not as old as I am, he's a wee bit clever than I am. So it's always where I find answers to what can we do and so on. So he's a very good guide for me to do my very best every day.
I have one last question about your background.
Yeah.
Boxing.
Yeah.
Is it a passion? And can you tell us about your career?
Yeah. Well, I started boxing when I was very young. As many young people, I think, both in Sweden and in Denmark and all around the world. It was just about the time where the film about Rocky came out.
Yes.
And I think we were all fascinated about boxing at that time, and it was also where you have great boxers like Thomas Hearns, Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, and all these guys.
Yes.
And I started boxing mainly because I wanted to try myself out. I had no intention at that time to have any fights. It was just to have hard training. But obviously, very quick.
You had the talent.
Yeah, I would put it this way. I probably didn't have a huge technical talent.
Okay.
I was not a technical boxer, but I think our trainer in the club, he could see that I never gave up.
Yeah.
When he told us to run 10 kilometers, I ran 20.
20, yeah.
Because I wanted to do more and I wanted to do my best. And he knew that if he put me into a fight, I would not give up. I would just keep on going forward and fight. And that's how it all started. And when I had my first fight, which I lost,
you had a Viking heart.
Yeah, I had a Viking heart, and my first fight, I met a boxer that had, I think, 6 or 7 fights before, and I'm a right-handed. He was left-handed, so I came up with a boxer that was completely different than me and was standing opposite the way I did, and they had no idea what to do. I never trained with one like him, so I lost that. But then after that, it really took off. I lost my first one, but that actually gave me a bigger hunger to continue. And then after a few fights, I became Danish champion. I became and 2 times, and I also got bronze at the Nordic Championships and so on. And was
you were in the national team.
I was at the national team as well. Had a lot of international fights and
20 something matches.
Yeah, I think well, I had about 68 fights in total.
Yeah.
And 22, 23 international fights.
That's impressive.
And didn't lose that many. So and still today, a lot of the things I learned from my period as a boxer is helping me today, because you need to be very focused. And in the job I do today, traveling around alone and so on, you need to be very focused on what you're doing as well. You need to concentrate on what you're doing. And I think the discipline I learned in boxing, both at the national team but also at in my club, had some fantastic trainers, is helping me to become the person I am today. So and when I hear about young people fighting on the streets and these kind of things, I always think, go to a club. Use your talent there, use your skills and so on, and get the discipline. I think boxing, for many people, they think it as a violent sport, but it's not. No. It's a sport where you learn to control yourself, where you learn to use your skills, both mind but also body-wise, and it's a great sport. And still today, I follow it with a big heart. And my son, which is 17, just started getting the interest really for boxing as well, and very proud to say that he has a talent more than I had. So hopefully he will take it up. I'm not telling him to kind of be a boxer, but with the skills he has and the power he has, there's definitely potential. Yeah.
What can you tell us about Valkyrie has just been released in Sweden?
Yeah, great whiskey.
Yeah, great whiskey, but it's a tad different.
Yeah, Valkyrie is the first of 3 whiskies in a line called Viking Legend.
Yeah.
So Valkyrie starts the whole thing, and we like to tell these stories about the Vikings, and Valkyrie was a very important spirit for the Vikings. Valkyries were the one that would choose who should live or die on the battlefield, and that made the Vikings very fearless, because they were not afraid of dying.
No.
Because Valkyries were good. They were the one, when they chose them to die, they also chose them to come up to Valhalla to live with Odin and Thor. So in this part here, we can kind of take it into to what people refer to as angels.
Yeah.
In a good way, if we should use a word, the angels of death, but in a positive way.
Yeah.
And the whiskey itself, whiskey we created with different kind of casks, and Gordon Motion, our master whiskey maker, is behind this and is a genius. We use 50% refill casks. Then we use just about 10% first fill European oak, about 15% American oak, sherry cask, and 25% bourbon cask. But we also used some heavily peated malt. Every year we are closing down for the normal production, and we're producing some heavily peated malt. They're still on that as well, and put it aside for special editions. And 50% of the cask we used here contain the heavily peated malt. But you have to remember the peat we have on Orkney is very different.
Yeah.
So it will never be a peat monster like you will find some of the Ida malt, like Port Charlotte or Octomore, which I love as well. But it's a different style of whiskey.
Yeah, it's a very different style.
So you have a whiskey here with lots of fruitiness, lots of spiciness, lots of sweetness, but we also dialed up the smoke a bit.
Yeah.
So we got this very complex but still very balanced whiskey, and won prizes already. We won for the best non-age statement whiskey in Norway a few days ago, and it's just an amazing whiskey.
It's a nice whiskey.
So we're quite happy for it. And again, as I said, when we make these whiskey, or when Gordon Motion makes this whiskey, a whiskey maker, he has something in his head.
Yeah.
This is where we have to go, but he also needs to find the cask for it.
Yeah.
And to put something together and create 240,000 bottles of that quality takes some skills.
Very much so.
And we're very proud to have him. So.
But I also asked you during the tasting that in Sweden we have the Ambassador's Choice, which you created, and that will be replaced by the 10-year-old.
Yeah. So we have a new 10-year-old coming in. It's actually the 10-year-old that you've seen in some markets. It's been in Germany, it's been in Holland, it's been for a short while in Denmark as well, and it's been in Canada and a few other places. But now it's becoming more or less worldwide.
Yeah. It'll be a core range.
It's part of a core range. Yeah. So where we have the 12-year-old, which is 100%. European oak with about 20-25% first fill cask. The 10-year-old is more American oak driven, American oak sherry cask. So you get a lighter flavor, you get more vanilla, you get more citrus coming out. You get a very balanced whiskey to the milder side, but you also, I think, a very good introduction not only to Highland Park, but a really good introduction to single malt as well. So the 10-year-old is definitely one to look out for. Fantastic dram as well. then we have our 12, we have our 18, 15-year-old is discontinued, Dark Origins is discontinued, 21-year-old discontinued, and of course we're replacing them with some new things. 21-year-old will be replaced with something we call, or 15-year-old, depending on how you look at it, with the full volume.
Yeah, I read about it.
Yeah, full volume is another great whiskey where we only use cask from 1999. First fill bourbon cask, 481 different casks.
It's only bourbon.
It's only bourbon, 100% first fill bourbon.
Thank you.
Nice.
So, yeah,
We love it.
It's incredible. We used bourbon before. We used the bourbon in ice and previous in Freya as well
I love them.
for the Valhalla collection. And this is coming out as well with 100% first fill bourbon. And it's again Gordon Motion that have a passion for music, together with Jason Craig that have a passion for music, and creating this tells a bit about a composer that are creating all these kind of beautiful music soundtracks, and to create them he needs to find the instruments that will give balance to the song or music he writes. And that's the same way our whiskey maker is working. It's very easy to take 50 casks, put them together and say this is a good whiskey. But to make a consistent balance in it, it's very hard. And that's what he done with full volume. A really good whiskey from Highland Park, and the reviews we got so far has been amazing.
When will we see full volume in Sweden?
It should be on the steps of. I would reckon that Systembolaget will take it in first thing in the new year. I even hope that it will probably be in December, but I'm not sure. So, but it's definitely a whiskey, and if you have a passion for bourbon cask, this is the one with.
I love the ice.
And ice is 53.9, this is 47.2, so a little bit milder that way, but it really releases all the flavors of the bourbon cask, and it's amazing.
I believe you.
So,
Du hade 3 frågor.
Yeah, I have one last question from me. I know you love the 25.
Yeah.
It's I read somewhere it's your favorite.
Yeah.
But that day when you are on the desert island, and you have to choose one bottle, and not from Edington or...
not from another distillery?
Yeah. Which one would you take with you on that island?
Yeah, well, I would probably go for Balvenie, or even if I can choose any, I would probably go for a Glenfiddich 30-year-old.
Okay.
I think Glenfiddich 30-year-old is an unbelievable whiskey, but most Balvenie I like as well. But it's very hard because if you ask me the day I have to go to the island, it might be different if my mood is different. So to choose one favorite, I'm a huge fan of Islay whiskies as well. Always been a huge fan of Lafroig and Ardbeg and Lagavulin and Bowmore and so on. But I think whiskey today, there are so many different flavors coming out from each and every distillery, and it's very hard to find one that you have as a favorite, because it's depending on the weather, depending on what you're actually eating, the season, and it always depends on your mood. And if I'm happy to go to the desert island, then it will be easier for me to choose than if I'm unhappy. It will be very hard for me to choose one. So please give me a box or something, and so on. But that said, I think there are so many good whiskies, as I said before. But I think there are so many good whiskies from other countries coming out as well. And here in Sweden, you have a few very good ones. I think Box as the first one is fantastic. You have Wien, you have Smögen, and they're all going the right direction. And with amazing people running the distilleries.
Indeed.
So I think in the future, and already now, I think you could actually choose your favorite from Swedish distilleries as well. Okay. And I'm a huge fan of the 3 distilleries I just mentioned. So if you have a desert island in Sweden and I can choose a Swedish whiskey, it would be fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Thank you for letting us interview.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again.
Well,
It's very
thank you.
nice. And we say slanche.
Slange.
Og skål.
Skål.
Säger han också.